Detroit Den 313. We are back. Stephen Will talking that Detroit Lions football. But before we get started, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new content. Steve, something happened.
Yeah, something did happen. We're still trying to figure it out. Well, I am, anyways.
Yeah.
Detroit Lions went out today. They added up another corner, Amik Robertson, quarterback for the Las Vegas, L.A., Oakland, wherever they play football at Raiders.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. My initial thought, I'm going to be honest here. Look, this wasn't a name I had ever heard. I'm not going to lie to you guys and pretend to be I'm some expert on every single player in the NFL. I have to do some homework. I have to do some digging. That's what we have to do. We come on here, we're prepared, we're honest. I don't know how I feel about him yet. I'm on the fence 50-50. I don't think it's a bad signing. I don't think it's anything to like worry about. I'm not, panicking or anything. I just don't know how I feel about him yet. How do you feel, William? Sway me.
I feel like the only reason why I knew about him is because he got knocked flat out unconscious. But
By who and where? Tell the story.
I can't remember what game it was. I just remember seeing it on Sports Center. I didn't go back to look it up. I have to go back, and it might have been the Jets game, but I remember he got knocked out. He was laying on the field, and then concussion protocol for a few weeks after that. But I will say, upon doing some digging, the guy's he's a tough player. I think actually I did see Pride of Detroit, so I'll give you guys some props because I stole this from you guys. Let me find it real quick so I'm not misquoting. But it was basically what Antonio Pierce said about him. And it was this. Antonio Pierce, for those of you who don't know, Raiders head coach, he said he's extremely talented. When the ball is in the air, he's a ball hawk. He's probably one of the more physical DBs. And I don't want to say that he has a little man complex, but he walks around like he's 6'2", 220 pounds. So if you know anything about him, he's actually 5'9", 180 pounds. So for a guy to carry himself like he's 6'2", 220, watched a little bit of his film, nothing too crazy because it was like just before we were hopping on, but he plays physical. I know that he was a starting corner for the Raiders last season. So I think that anytime you can get a guy who was started for a team who came on strong in the second half of the season and played well, it's perfect, man. He's a depth piece at minimum. So we got Carlton Davis, we got Cam Sutton, and now we got another depth piece. And I think also what could happen is he definitely is versatile and he could play the nickel corner if needed to. That being said, if we want to not replace CJ Gardner-Johnson and just have Brian Branch step into his position that he would have been playing, and then you still got Ife Melifonwu, you still got Kirby Joseph, it just gives us options. It gives us a way to scheme in different ways. So, and what we've been talking about all the time, we're trying to find some draft clarity throughout all of this chaos. I think it does give us a little bit more draft clarity. We don't have to go out and sign a cornerback in a draft now. Now we can just flat out.
Somebody's calling you.
Yeah, we can just flat out go out there and draft whoever we want, whether that's a defensive tackle, whether it's a defensive end. It doesn't matter. We can go get who we want.
The very little I've done on Amik, I've had about an hour to do a little research. I'm glad you brought up him being a nickel because from what I've seen in just a few videos of doing a little homework is a lot of him guarding tight ends. I watched him playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was guarding Benjamin Watson quite a bit, Travis Kelce a few times. Travis Kelce's in a league of his own, so that's a tough matchup for damn near anyone. But I like how you said he's versatile. Now, can he play outside corner if, let's say, we lose a Cam Sutton for a game or two, or if Carlton Davis goes down for a game or two? Is he a guy who just slides right in, or is he purely probably going to be with the Detroit Lions, mostly a nickel slot corner guy?
I think it all depends on what goes on. I think initially he's a guy that's just going to be a depth piece, and I shouldn't say just, man. The guy played like a dog. So, and I think that he's a guy that's going to hold Cam Sutton accountable, right? And Carlton Davis at that, So he's another guy that can play our starting cornerback in the NFL. You need to have more than two guys, like if it goes down, we're looking at Will Harris. And nothing against Will Harris. He's came in and put a Band-Aid on things, but I don't think that, if somebody went down for an extended period of time, that's what we should be looking to do over the long term. So it gives us options. We still got Emmanuel Mosley waiting in the wings as well. Now you got another depth piece that can start at corner, or you can put him at that nickel position immediately. And we still got Brian Branches of the world. We still don't know what's going to happen with CJ Gardner Johnson, and we got safeties for days, man. It's just a great position to be in going into the draft. To me,
We'll get into the draft in a little bit because I kind of got a better picture of what I think is going to happen. But how do you feel about Robertson's contract? I'm looking at it right now. 2-year contract, 9.25 million. So he's making a little bit more than 4.5 per year. Almost $11 million with incentives. Kind of like it's kind of, I don't want to say contradicting, but last night we talked about guys on 1-year deal, prove it
yeah,
deals.
yeah.
Do you think Brad has a little bit more faith that he could be a solid corner, giving him a 2-year deal? I know it's not like a forever contract. It's not like a 5-year contract that we're going to be locked up with this kid, but 2 years, 4.5 million ish. How do you feel about that? Comfortable?
I feel like the guy's 25 years old.
His age isn't a problem. I'm not worried about that.
No, I'm just saying in general. He's 25 years old. He's still young. He's still developing. I
Still in
feel
his
like
prime.
I feel
Not
like
even
that
in
was
his prime.
I feel like that's a negotiation piece for him. Hey, 2-year deal, man. You go out here and show out. You can go make yourself some more money. But we'll give you this 2-year deal. You'll get an opportunity to be put in a great situation to where you won't even have to necessarily be that number 1 or number 2 corner. You can be doing some of the things that you've seen on film. And I also, before I watched a little bit of game tape of him, and I just watched the highlights. For whatever reason, it was a lot of him covering tight ends that I saw as well when it came to his highlights. And he didn't have many highlights, true highlight tapes, because he wasn't a big household name that guys have made cut ups of. But when I watched the game film, he was out there at the corner position playing the number 1s and number 2 corner. So that's something that he can do as well, man. Like I said, he played last season he played corner last season. So really what I'm trying to get to is this. He's a depth piece. Right?
Yep.
He's a guy, if we need him to go out and play the number 2 corner, he'll be able to do it. In lieu of that, we can put him in on slot guys, teams that are running 3 wides instead of, having a tight end out there. And maybe, we scheme around that. Maybe Brian Branch is a guy to get more physical and get dirty, or, Iffy Melifonwu comes into the box and deals with tight ends. And when we got 3 receiver sets, he's more the guy that'll be out there dealing with that personnel. So I think it gives us options. It protects us if somebody goes down. So I absolutely love it. We didn't spend a truckload on him, but we got a guy with a lot of upside again.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Marcus Davenport situation. Just we don't really have anything we're risking here. This is a high reward piece. I think we've talked about it over and over and over and over and over. Brad Holmes is going to fix the biggest weakness on this team being, is it pass rush or is it secondary? I think he's kind of slowly tipping his hand on what he thinks it is. And yeah, I think Robertson's just a chess piece. He's going to play wherever we need him to play, outside corner, inside corner, whatever he can do is going to be a bonus. Our secondary last year was atrocious. And as of yesterday, we only had 1 corner on the team before we traded for Carlton Davis. So we were kind of in a position of, dang, we have 2 corners. We kind of knew we would get another one, whether it would be free agency or the draft. So I guess that got answered today.
Yeah.
So speaking of the draft, yesterday I asked both of us a question. Does this lay a clearer path for what Brad Holmes could do in the draft? I wouldn't say it's crystal clear, but in my opinion, at 29, I think the pick is either going to be defensive line or offensive line. I don't think it's going to be a secondary player. I don't even know if we're drafting a secondary player in the 2nd round, which kind of sucks because we've done a lot of homework on a lot of kids we like. I guess it's possible, but at 29, I'd be willing to bet the house that it's offensive line or defensive line.
Honestly, man, I'm still not set that we're not going to draft a receiver right there.
Possibly. That's an X factor.
Yeah, so if Adonai Mitchell's there, if Xavier Liggett's there, Xavier Worthy's there, depending on what, Ben wants too. I'm sure Ben's in those conversations saying, hey, if we do X, Y, and Z, we can do this. So I'm still not set. I still don't know. The only thing that I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with is that there's an understanding that Brad has of the board. He's seeing that the Nate Wiggins is probably going to be gone. The Quinyon Mitchell is probably going to be gone. And those are 2 guys that I have ranked super high, man. The rest of the guys, I'm not as high as some of the other people on the rest of the camp. I think they can be solid players in the NFL, but they're not guys that I would be drafting in the 1st round over some of those defensive linemen that we love or those receivers that we love. So that's just my opinion. I think that Brad's looking at the board saying, hey, I'm not in love with any of the corners that are going to be available at 29 or around 29. We've already gotten rid of, I don't want to say gotten rid of, but we've utilize one of our third round picks to go out and go get us a corner. So I think those picks are coming. They're going to be a little bit tighter with those picks and some of the moves that he's trying to make. So he just made the move that was best for us for right now, but we don't know who he's going to select.
I would say who's really high on my list right now at pick 29 is probably Zach Frazier from West Virginia, center/guard. We have a need at left guard. We have a need in the future with Frank if he decides to retire after this year. Zach just slides right in there and plays center. As of today, I like Zach Frazier. I think he's probably the second best interior offensive lineman behind Jackson Powers Johnson, who's probably gone. So I think I'm kind of leaning toward that Zach Frazier route right now. Just day one, plug and play. He's going to play at a high level. He's going to be a day one starter, rookie deal. Keep that O-line chugging and moving along. I think that's the strength of the team. We have to address it, especially losing Jonah Jackson. So I'm looking at a player like Zach Frazier as of now. But my mind could change before draft day.
Yeah, I'm still not there yet. Free agency isn't over, and speaking of free agency, there's a couple elephants in the room. How you feeling about Daniil Hunter still being out there?
I'm pretty surprised he's still available. He was him and Christian Wilkins were probably the two big dogs on the D line for free agents. And Christian Wilkins was signed within like the first hour and a half. Yeah. And Daniil Hunter is still out there. So what do you think's going on? Do you think he's asking too much? What do you think the problem is?
I'm not sure what the problem is, honestly, man. But my question to you was going to be, are you still interested in him?
Oh, I'm 100% interested. That's a day one all-pro potential, Pro Bowl caliber defensive end on the other side of a Pro Bowl defensive end where we struggle. We've shored up the secondary a little bit. I'm not saying our secondary is elite. I think it has the potential on paper to be very good. I think it's better than last year. We have two starting corners and a backup corner like we're talking about today with Robertson. You go out and you sign Daniil Hunter. You have two Pro Bowl caliber defensive ends rushing the passer. On top of that, I think, man, sky's the limit. And people are asking for a big splash. I just don't want to be handicapped by a monster contract when we still have our own guys to take care of down the road.
I understand, man. So I did see that he's looking for around $30 million a year. Is that something that you're interested in still?
Oh, man, I don't know if I could pay him. Here's the question. Is he worth more than Christian Wilkins, in your opinion?
No.
So you would pay him less than 27 and a half? Just asking, just curious.
I wouldn't pay him. Like I'm not interested in him. We were talking about 20 mil and I was still like, I'd pay him 20 million probably, but I don't know if I want to do that. I might look to somebody in the draft at that 20 million mark. But
man, hang on, let me throw something at you because I know you like this situation. Okay. Let me throw this out there. We still have pick 29.
Yep.
Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Braden Fisk, Daniil Hunter.
What about it?
You don't like that lineup on the starting front?
Of course I like the lineup, but do I like that lineup at 30 million? I don't.
You like that lineup if it brings home a Lombardi trophy in February?
I want Lombardi trophies, man, and maybe that's greedy. But it's because it's gonna come to a head, man, if you give him that 30 million and then you go out and give Jared Goff close to 50 million and then you pay Amon-Ra close to 30 million.
And Penei Sewell.
It's gonna come to a head, man. So I think you almost are forced to. If you're talking about making a long-term run, you're almost forced to either get guys that are kind of under the radar who have the potential to make big plays for you, or you got to go out and you got to do it through the draft. So right now at that position, he's not somebody that I would be looking to for answers.
There's so many different ways that the Lions could go, though. I mean, even if we signed Daniil Hunter, could we take the San Francisco 49ers route? And this might not be a popular opinion where we do something with Jared Goff and we move on and we give the keys to Hendon Hooker on a cheaper deal to sign Penei Sewell and keep that going with an elite offense already. And we kind of turn to Hendon Hooker and say, it's your time. We have an elite defense, just like the San Francisco Niners have. Two pass rushers who will get double-digit sacks, no problem, pending health. Secondary's fixed because use a little bit more work, but we still have the draft. I don't know. There's a million options. And I look at the Eagles who are spending money hand over fist somehow. They're paying like 15 players, it seems like. So I don't know. There's got to be a way. I'm not saying go out and sign Daniil Hunter right now, but and I'm with you. I don't want just a one-time thing. I want sustained success. I don't want to end up like the Rams were, where they won the Super Bowl with Stafford, and then the next 2 years they kind of were just middle of the pack and borderline sucked. So I don't know, but Daniil Hunter it does surprise me that he's still available and he's still very high on my list. But $30 million, I don't know if I can pay him more than Christian Wilkins.
My thing is, there's other guys out there, man, that I think that you could get that can have an edge rush, huge edge rush impact that you could pay a lot less, and that's my thing. I think that we're gonna do a show on these guys, so I don't want to get too heavily into it. But when you start talking about Khalil Mack, for instance, and I know we talked about him a little bit, but there's some things that are going on out there with the Chargers and reasons why we can be optimistic about the availability of maybe a Mac and maybe a Bosa. They might be on the table. Those are two players that might even get cut, man. So, like I said, I don't want to get too far into it, but there's options out there where you don't have to pay Daniil Hunter $30 million. Bottom line. So,
If I'm not mistaken, I heard, and I don't know if this is true, that the Chargers are in cap hell. I know that they're way over the cap limit, but I think I heard something that tomorrow, Wednesday, is when they have to decide if they're gonna. Am
no,
I wrong on that?
yeah, it's by June 1st. So by
Okay.
June 1st, and I wasn't, I was trying to keep it in our back pocket for a show, but June 1st, they have to make a decision on getting rid of those guys, and they can save them around between 14 and $20 million, depending on which one they select, if they cut them before. So it's one of the reasons why those names aren't getting talked about in trades, because why trade when you guys got to make a decision by
Yeah.
June 1st? You might just cut one of those guys and we can sign them, and we don't have to lose anything trying to get them on our squad. So it's definitely a chess game going on out there between them and the NFL, and it's something to keep an eye on. So if we're living in a world to where, to me, obviously I love Joey Bosa, man, love him. He's a beast. But if you're talking about Mac, who's a little older, had a great season last year as far as production, if you can get him on a 1 or 2 year deal signing rather than having to sign Bosa for maybe a 3, 4, 5 year deal, then I would do that because there's a lot less risk. Pay the guy for a couple of years, then he comes off your books. You can fill his spot through the draft, and you're not worried about that huge cap hit. Instead of having to carry that contract for 3, 4 seasons, it's more problematic. So that's just my thought process behind it. It's another options that the Detroit Lions have, and I'm sure Brad Holmes in the camp has looked into. Um, one more free agent signing that I want to talk to you about while we're talking about free agents who's still out there. Calvin Ridley. I'm after Calvin Ridley. How do you feel about that?
Here, Calvin Ridley, where he's successful was when he was with Julio Jones in Atlanta, where he wasn't the main guy. I think that's a position he needs to go in. That's not really what they tried to do with him in Jacksonville. They signed him and they wanted him to be the number one receiver. I don't think it really worked out. I think if he goes back to that and he can take a step back and say, dang, I could be probably the best second, maybe third option on a team, I would be okay with that if the contract's right. But I mean, obviously, if he comes here, what option is he going to be? He's going to be right in that role. He's not going to be number one, probably not going to be number two. He's probably looking at a third option at best. I would be comfortable with that. I think he's a hell of a player. He's not high on my radar, but I think he would fit on the Detroit Lions very nicely.
I think you're nuts, man. I think that the dude was he had 1,000 yards receiving last year quietly. So
Yeah,
we're talking about a guy that's 1,000 yard receiver. So I can't say that he can't be a number one or he wasn't utilized as a number one. He was battling for footballs out there with Christian Kirk and still, getting 1,000 yards receiving. So I think that he's an immediate upgrade from Josh Reynolds, right? So if we're telling me that I swap out Josh Reynolds and I get Calvin Ridley, I think the
well, it's a huge
enhancement,
upgrade.
yeah, it's a huge upgrade, man, and I absolutely love it. So I was digging into the contracts a little bit, and we're looking at they're saying that the market value for Josh Reynolds is about 7 million a year, and the market value for Calvin Ridley is about 10. So you're telling me for 3 extra million, I can get a Calvin Ridley at the X receiver instead of a Josh Reynolds? It's a no-brainer for me. Now we're talking about Calvin Ridley, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery. Like, what are we doing? And a hugest X factor, the hugest X factor on top of all of that, JMO. So it's and then it'll give you more options in the draft. So now you're telling me you don't have to talk about those Adonai Mitchells at 29. You don't have to talk about Xavier Leggett at 29. You can go out and strictly focus on that offensive line or defensive line, and I'm hoping it's defensive line. I'm really liking the idea of us going out and getting Fisk, man. I'm still on Fisk, going out and getting him, and us having a defensive line that is just huge in stature and twitchy,
And
right?
fast.
Yep. We have, Davenport is a 4 or 5 guy. Aiden's twitchy, right? So now you bring in Fisk, who's twitchy, right? And you got a brand new brand new body, brand new make and model of Aleem McNeil. Come on, man. That defensive line is a problem. I would love it. And I think it could be a big deal, man. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I like Calvin Ridley. I'm not trying to downplay it. I just I would love him in Detroit with what he would be able to do. Where Amon is still probably the number one guy, and Calvin Ridley could just run around and just raise hell. $10 million is more than fair. He's an upgrade over Reynolds. We talked about all the time about not letting this offense get stale. Since we're bringing back pretty much everyone minus Jonah Jackson, we're bringing back pretty much the whole entire offense besides him. Yep. So just adding another piece, giving Goff another weapon. I love the idea. Calvin Ridley would be hell of an upgrade. I'm not trying to knock it. It's just it's not something I had really dove into and really started studying up on it and trying to put a show together for it.
Yeah, I just love the idea, man. I just love the idea. He's a guy that I liked, when he was in Atlanta. And then I was waiting to see when he came back from the suspension, did he still have the juice? And I feel like he did. I watched some of the training camp stuff, man. I really love watching guys do drills back to back. So I'm watching Christian Kirk do a drill, right? And then I'm watching Calvin Ridley do the drill. And I'm watching how they get in and out of their breaks. And you could see a visual difference in how quick they're coming in and out of their breaks, how sharp their routes are. And that's what I'm looking for, man. I'm looking for guys that are different. I'm looking for guys that are special. I know when he came out in the combine, he was like I can't remember. I don't want to quote, but I know he was close to 4.3. So he was like a 4.42 or a 4.43 guy. So he's a guy that has speed, right? And he has the ability to be able to stop and go on a dime. I think it just makes our offense that much better.
Here's my question for you.
Talk to me.
You trust him and Jameson Williams in a hotel room on a Friday night not to make a bet?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Believe it or not, I do.
I'm all for Calvin Ridley. We'll have to dive into more. I'm looking at his stats right now from last year. 76 catches, very productive just from a catching. Tied for 29th in the league. Just over 1,000 yards, 1,016, and he was top 10 in touchdowns with 8. So that's pretty solid production. And Jacksonville's offense was kind of up and down like a little bit of a roller coaster last year. You come somewhere here where we're more established, dominant offensive line, dominant run game, one of the best young tight ends in the NFL, Amon St. Brown, top 5 wide receiver. You throw him in the mix, good night.
Yeah.
Good
Brad,
night.
Brad, make that call, man.
$10 million, sign the check.
Yep.
All right, guys, we've talked about some new free agents, some potential free agents. Leave some comments down below. Let us know how you feel. Hit that like button. If you're new to this channel, guys, hit that subscribe button. We'll be back later with some more content.
Peace.